E te iwi tēnā koutou katoa. Maketu Marae. Its history and its relationship to the round, better known as Te Rauna. In order to give you some indication or some idea of its relationship to the kingdom, it is huge. No reira kia timatau I roti I tēnei. Tahi mano warurau rima tekau mā waru te tau. Kingi pō te tau, kingi o te tika. I muri iau ko te atua. Ko ua nuku kei tangata. I muri iau ko tō atu. Ko I hoa o ngā mano, kia mau ki te ture, ki te whakapono me te aroha. Why have we started with that? It's because from it, from the history of Maketu and every other marae, comes the structure of the kingitanga. When we think about starting with pōtatau, kingi pōtatau te wherawhera. Ka titi o tātou, hea ngā kōrero. Kia mōhia ke tātou, ko te tīmatanga o ngā huatanga kato, ka tīmata mai I Maketu. I Maketu ki hai, koi nei te tikanga. Tai himano warurau ono te tau. Kingi tāwhia, kingi o te maungarongo, ko te atua tō tātou pirika. Tō tātou kaha, hei kai a whina. E tino tata ana I ngā wā o te he. King Tāwhia. Through him, the Poukai structure begins. I will come into that later on, for it's important that we understand. We understand very much is that the Poukai structure became a concern. It was to become the solution. It was to become the pulse of the kingdom. Tahi mano warurau I wetakau mā whā te tau. Kingi mahuta, kingi o te rangi Māori. Kia ngohe ngā wairua katoa. I ngā mana nununu. Mahuta, King Mahuta. He succeeded his father Tāwhia. It was turned to be that the kingitanga itself and the kaupapa, the Māori, the mana, would be defined in a succession of pōtatau te wherawheras uri. In 1894, the year in which King Mahuta would become the successor to his father, King Tāwhia. We move on to 1912, at the passing of King Mahuta. Tā himano I warau te kaumārua te tau. Kingi te rata ko te tau Poukai. Whakamāri e o te tāpere kara, o te whakaoranga o tā te atua I pai ai. I noia, kia hoatu kia koutou, rapua kia kitea e koutou. Pātoto ka hua kina kia koutou. Seek and ye shall find. King Te Rata, who succeeded his father, King Mahuta, in 1912. By 1933, ko te tautahi mano I warau toru kaumātoru. Kingi koraki te mana motu hake o ngā waka katoa o te motu nei. Nāna te kurumoi. Kingi koraki, who decided to bring together, to combine the Poukais those 6 Poukais of those marae, Parawera, o Wairaka, Rakaunui, Waipapa, Maketu, and finally Okapu. We commemorate and begin the journey on the 9th of every year and concluding on the 14th. This year it will be the 13th for Okapu. Poukai will not be held this year. Finally ending at Turangawawe. And why did I start Maketu's Marae profile with this kaupapa? Because it's kingitanga. Ka titoro tātou kia Maketu. And when we think about Maketu, we look at how it's come about. There's so much there to be described. It's a place of history where Tainui made its final landfall. It is a place of history, and today, where our ahurewa, we go there to pray. It is a place where Tangita Korowhichi, the tree that Tainui Waka was anchored to, and we backdate that to 800 years plus. Then we think about O Kitarangi, father of Hoturoa. And we think about them. And in honour of Hoturoa, the whare was opened in 1962. All the carvings were led by Tepui's brothers for that house. All the decorations, the Waituhi, Wituku, was made here at Turangawawe in Parewaikato. O Kiterang was the father, of course, of Hoturoa, the navigator of the Tainui Waka. And we think and we look at Maketu Marae. The whare represents his father. And behind Te Tumo Tainui, the huge dining room that accommodates the people. The relationship of Ngāti Mahuta, Hiitori, Taranaki. It has a very strong relationship based on what I said about Waipapa Marae. And there's 12 figures that represent the Koorero. So we think about the importance of this key factor with regards to Maketu. From it, our people began, they spread out and they created their own hapu. But suffice to say is that the belief, it is a belief, and I, for one, believe that the only iwi that came from there, and I leave this as a contention for all of you out there, was Waikato. Because when you look at Okiterangi, we think about Kui Tepo, his wife. Then we think about how from all those tupuna came down from Hoturoa, it begins to branch out. And that's where your iwi comes in, or your hapu. And so you have the indifference of from that base of Waikatotanga, is that all these hapu begins. They come inland, they spread, and they create. For all that's said and done, that's where your hapu comes from. That in itself, Maketu has so much to offer, so much with regards to history. This program would be defined and just based on Maketu alone. You got the history of the waka, you got the history of Otiro, you have the history of the iwi that extend from that one group. We all came off the one waka. We spread and we generated. Is that when we look at Tangita Korowhichi, the tree itself, where from 240, when the tree was vandalized, and I would say Pākehā did it. Why would Māori do it? So between the Waipa District Council And the board, the trustees at the time, that was led by Tata Kepa. And then it was from there that when the tree was vandalized, Te Ariki Nui said to Tata, she wants a rākau that come off that tree to be able to create gifts for her friends, for the people who supported her. 240 carved rākau. Carved rākau was made and from the tree itself. And so for what's said and done is that I'll show you. Yeah. Here is the rākau. There it is. And then this is, one would say, 239, I suppose. But these are the rākau, and this is Tangi Te Kora Whiti's uri. So, you are now looking at something that's real, and for all that's said and done, these are the gifts that came from that tree that was vandalized. So when we look at that and we think about not only that, but korotangi, the 3,000-old talisman. That was the serpentine. Korotangi is carved from serpentine rock. And it's said that it was carved, and its relationship goes back to places like Taiwan. Is that for all that's said and done, that time we came through that area, is that korotangi was perceived to have been carved in that form and carried by Taimi, by Ting. And the same can be said with Uanuku, that the Maori of Hawaii could have been brought via a pebble. And you bring that Maori, you can't bring Uanuku, and Uanuku was discovered in Ohopo at the lake there. It was covered, it was buried in mud. And how do I know this? Is because through the museum. And when we talk about tikanga, we talk about Koorero, and the proof to show these are the results that come from kawhia, from Maketu. Tangi te korowhiti, the tree that Tainui was anchored to. Korotangi, the talisman, the oracle bird, one of three. Korotangi is one of three oracle birds that came from Tainui waka. The other two were Mumuhau and Takareto. And those are the two, prior to Tainui making landfall here in this country, on this island. Those two manu were released and they flew straight to Taranaki. And its relationship with regards to people here on the south side, you'll find that here at Tūrangawaewae, at the apex of the very top, uppermost of the outside of Kimiora, is a carving that is high above the roof, and it faces towards Taranaki Maunga. And that is the relationship that we have here at Tūrangawaewae with Maketu Marae and every other marae, but it's in particular Maketu with Taranaki. So by 1933, King Koriki, he held the Maori and the mana o ngā waka katoa, the relationship to all the marae and motu throughout Aotearoa. The history of Maketu is huge. It cannot be told in one day for you to absorb. However, the reality is that's why I'm saying, with Maketu, its history is so huge. And it takes us back to the reality of all things that has to be said about Maketu. And By 1966, Te Ariki Nui had succeeded her father, Te Tairangi Kahu. And when we think about that, she, as an ambassador of the world, is that she brought together the saying of her great-great-great-grandfather, King Tawhia. My friends are from the four corners of this earth. That's what he said. He said that they are the shoemakers, the blacksmiths, and the carpenters. Speaking in simple terms, the common people. So we think about Maketu and its relationships and its affinity to Ngāti Mahuta here within the internal structure of this waka called Taimi, and we have Ngāti Mahuta all along the coast. And people are wondering why were they called Ngāti Mahuta? In particular, with regards to our families out there, they were given the name Hapu Ngāti Mahuta by the king himself. When he was there visiting, is that our family were concerned because King Mahuta wasn't in the best of health. And he said to our family, there along the coast, he said, Ep10 ana, ka haki au, I will return home. Engari ka waihuti au taku ingoa. He left his name. And that's how our people along the coast became Ngāti Mahuta. And the question is, by the people internally who hold that hapu tama, that name, how did they get to become Mahuta? Very simple. Because when the king visited them on the coast, he left with them, he said, E Koorero e hoki mai, engari ka waihuti au taku ingoa. He will not return. He knew he was going to die. And so he said, I will not return, but I will leave my name. And that's how our people on the coast became Ngāti Mahuta. So we think about that, and you want to know about Mahuta, about Maketu's history? That's only the starters. That's only starters. However, leaving it with you to be able to extend your understanding of Maketu Marae. Yes, our people, they link to us, have a strong link to us here at Turangawawe. However, I'm going to leave that there because the fact is that the history that surrounds Maketu, when you look at the Tumo Tainui, that is another history. You look at the relationship with Taranaki, that is another history. You look at many, the four corners of Maketu, it's so history involved that just a few minutes on podcast is not enough. But it'll whet the appetite. No data, that's Ati Mama on Taimi Live, 95.4 FM.